The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, or not to anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. Buddha. It's International Mind-Body Wellness Day, and this reminder could not have come at a better time. With just 3 days into the new year, we want to remind you to be resolute in your quest to become the best version of yourself. And remember, there is no better time than today to start. We have an interesting lineup coming up on the program. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay tuned.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, January 3, 2023. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has sounded the warning that this year, government will be focused on ensuring the opportunities and loopholes to escape justice are closed. As he welcomed the new year in a message to Jamaicans, the Prime Minister asserted that 2023 is the year when Jamaica will start to see a sustained reduction in violent crimes, particularly murders, and an increase in public order and safety.
This year, a clear message will be sent to violence producers that law enforcement and the criminal justice system is not a revolving door. Criminals will begin to understand that we are changing the risk-reward dynamic of crime in Jamaica. The probability of being caught is great. The penalty for crimes is high, and the opportunities and loopholes to escape justice are being closed.
Pointing to the new Firearms Act, which came into force on November 1 last year, Mr. Holness says the rate of arrest for illegal firearm offenses will increase.
I want to take this opportunity to appeal to our young men who are both the perpetrators of gun crime and the victims of gun crimes to turn away from guns. Avoid persons who you know have guns or have dealings with guns. The probability of being arrested and taken out of society for at least 15 years is increasing daily.
He says government is steadily building out the legal framework to treat appropriately with those determined to perpetuate violence in society. As a result, over the next few months, amendments will be taken to Parliament to significantly increase the penalty for murder to over 30 years. In addition, the new Bail Act is expected to get Parliament's approval, while new corrections, fingerprint, and enhanced security measures bills will be tabled. Meanwhile, Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang is assuring Jamaicans that effective measures are in place to prevent the violation of human rights under the states of public emergency SOEs. Dr. Chang gave the assurance at the recent press conference where SOEs were declared for Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Clarendon, St. Catherine, St. Anne, Kingston, and St. Andrew.
Law-abiding citizens can rest assured that the best net fishing practice of times past no longer applies to today's security operations. All the required measures have been put in place to prevent the violation of human rights, while targeting, apprehending, and removing violence producers from the communities.
He adds that the SOEs are restoring a sense of normality for law-abiding citizens, and the government is pursuing a strategic approach to combating crime and violence.
As we pursue our policy and legislative changes that are required to support the work of security forces, we will utilize all the resources available to protect law-abiding citizens.
The capability of the police to issue electronic tickets will more than double with the arrival of e-ticketing devices in the next few weeks. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement in his New Year's Day message to the country.
Under this new system, warrants will be issued in a seamless and timely manner. Traffic violators will no longer be able to ignore tickets they have accumulated and continue to drive recklessly without consequences.
He says the new Road Traffic Act, which comes into effect on February 1, will go a far way in bringing order to our roadways.
Motorists are encouraged to address their outstanding tickets at the courts before the new law takes effect.
Legislation will be tabled this year requiring Jamaicans to separate their garbage as government seeks to change the culture of waste management in the country. In making the announcement, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says this policy change will begin with government entities.
Cabinet has already agreed and decided that a policy directive will be issued shortly to all government entities, requiring them to institute measures for the separation of the waste they generate. This will include all schools and hospitals.
The Prime Minister, who was delivering his New Year's Day message, says later this year, government will also pass legislation to increase the fines for illegal and improper disposal of municipal waste.
The ultimate transformation of our municipal waste system requires behavior change on the part of our citizens. Litterers and polluters must pay.
In the meantime, he says, the administration is far advanced with the development of a business case for an integrated waste management solution. This will involve a new sanitary landfill to replace Riverton, divested municipal waste collection and management, and development of a waste-to-energy plant.
The solution will be implemented through a public-private partnership, and aspects of the plan will begin to manifest this year.
And finally, Minister with Responsibility for Information Robert Morgan has announced the appointment of Anthros Campbell as the new Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Information Service, JIS. Minister Morgan has hailed the appointment of the former Deputy CEO as a forward step in the evolution of JIS. He says the fact that the Public Service Commission was able to promote from within the entity is of positive significance and speaks to the quality of individuals working in the public service. Ms. Campbell, who was selected by the Services Commission from several persons who had applied for the CEO position, has been appointed on a 2-year contract, effective October 1, 2022. Prior to her appointment, Ms. Campbell acted in the position following the departure of former CEO Mrs. Donna Marie Rowe. The new head of the agency says she's honored to have been selected to serve her country at this level and looks forward to leading Team JIS to even greater heights. Ms. Campbell has previously served in editorial capacities in the JIS's radio and television departments, as well as manager of the radio department, director of production, and deputy CEO of the agency. She has also spearheaded the media management and coordination for state, official, and national events. Anthros Campbell is a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a Bachelor of Arts in History and Spanish and a Master's in Spanish Translation. She has received several awards over the years, including the Press Association of Jamaica PAJ Award for Excellence in 2019 and the 2013 Civil Servant of the Year Award. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
In our 60th year, we will be fully institutionalizing our national identification system. What I can tell you is that I am working assiduously within the boundaries of the bureaucracy of government to try and make changes happen.
On Emancipation Day, Madam Speaker, we will see the return of the float and street parade.
The government was on the move in 2022, unlocking new milestones, new achievements, and new opportunities for growth. Catch these highlights and more in our Year in Review right here on this station.
In this HealthWise feature, we look at sudden cardiac arrest, how you may identify the condition, learn, and possibly avoid its causes.
You're up and about going through your routine activities. Suddenly, you collapse without warning. Your heart stops beating, and within seconds, you stop breathing. A quick check shows there's no pulse. All signs of sudden cardiac arrest. Sudden cardiac arrest, SCA, is a condition in which the heart unexpectedly stops beating. When this happens, blood stops flowing to the brain and other vital organs. The person may die if not treated within minutes.
So the way you decide if they're having sudden cardiac arrest is, in addition to seeing if they're conscious, calling to them and seeing if there's any response, you need to feel for a pulse. So you'd feel at the neck, at the angle of the jaw, or you could listen for the heartbeat by putting your ear to the patient's chest. You need to see if they're breathing. So if they're not breathing, they have no pulse, then they're in cardiac arrest.
SCA is not to be confused with a heart attack, which happens when blood flow to the heart is blocked. However, a heart attack can lead to sudden cardiac arrest. Another way to look at it is, a heart attack is a circulation problem, while sudden cardiac arrest is an electrical one. The immediate cause of most SCAs is an abnormal heart rhythm as the electrical activities of the heart becomes chaotic and the heart is unable to pump blood to the rest of the body.
We're all at risk for sudden cardiac death, so we need to know our numbers and our status. What is your blood pressure? Do you know what your blood pressure is? Do you know what your cholesterol is? So we might be a walking time bomb and we don't know. It's not just people who appear healthy who are at risk. Somebody can be overweight and you say, oh, they're bound to drop down, but somebody who is slim can drop down as well. It just depends what the other risk factors are. So I just think the only way we can know is to know your numbers, know your status.
Among the conditions that trigger sudden cardiac arrest is coronary artery disease, a more common cause in persons over 35 years old. Also, cardiomyopathy, in which the heart muscle becomes enlarged or thick and weak, as well as inherited disorders that may cause parts of the heart to stretch and become weak. Other conditions include disorders of the heart's electrical system, as well as heart defects that were exhibited at birth. Persons who have a family history of sudden cardiac arrest or heart disease are also at risk. In contrast to elderly persons, cases of SCA is not prevalent in children.
But the children can be born with some types of heart disease that make them have a higher risk for sudden cardiac arrest. That is usually picked up if they have, sometimes at birth, because of the abnormalities. But even if they're corrected, they can still have an increased risk of sudden cardiac arrest.
Highlighted cases of SCA in student athletes in recent years prompted increased focus on evaluation for the physically active.
I would like to encourage all parents, if you have a child who is involved in any team sport, any physical activity, or even a lot of physical activity, and if they're not on a team, to please have your child checked. Carry them for sudden cardiac arrest screening. We have it at the Heart Foundation. We can come island-wide, or go to your GP and have your child tested.
A victim of sudden cardiac arrest can survive with the quick action of a bystander who is able to apply immediately cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR.
You will start resuscitative efforts, which would include compressing the chest in order to get the heart going. You may or may not breathe for them. Nowadays, it is not, a lot of bystanders balk at starting CPR because they don't want to put their mouth on the patient's mouth. And that's a real concern. Studies were done a couple years ago and they determined that compression-only CPR, so just pressing on the chest alone, is of value.
If available, an automated external defibrillator, AED, can be used within a few minutes to restore a normal rhythm to the heart. These may be available at certain places such as airports, stadiums, and other public and business places.
If someone has developed chest pain, they've grabbed their chest, they've sank down on the ground because they're having chest pain or they're not breathing properly, you don't start CPR for that. They need to get to medical attention immediately. But you would only start CPR if the patient is pulseless and not breathing.
Following that bit of first intervention, which must take place within the first 4 to 5 minutes of sudden cardiac arrest, the patient will need to be moved immediately to a hospital. The Ministry of Health since 1996 has been partnering with the Ministry of Local Government through the Jamaica Fire Brigade to expand its provision of pre-hospital service.
We recognize that transportation of patients to hospital is a vital part of the chain of survival. Certainly from the patient suffers an incident to the point at which they reach hospital and get care. The transportation to hospital is important, and not only in terms of the time that it takes, but also in terms of the support that is provided during that transport.
You're supposed to have a defibrillator on the ambulance. You're supposed to have basic drugs which a trained paramedic would be able to administer to continue advanced cardiac life support. And when they get to the hospital, which would have been alerted from the ambulance that we're bringing in a cardiac arrest victim, the team would be waiting at the door of the hospital to receive this patient.
Based on the value of CPR in saving a life, the Ministry of Health has been partnering with the Heart Foundation of Jamaica to encourage more Jamaicans to get trained in CPR. And this important life skill is everybody's business, so get trained and be ready to lend a hand when the need arises.
Have you started your New Year's resolutions? Is getting in shape one of them? It should be. Experts say that exercise can, among other things, help to reduce stress and the risk of certain diseases. So roll out those yoga mats, dust off those sneakers, and let's get moving.
Get moving for a healthier you is the passionate call to action by the Ministry of Health. And it's creating waves across the country as Jamaica moves to tackle non-communicable diseases (NCDs) through regular physical exercise and proper nutrition. Within schools, the Healthy Lifestyle program is being rebranded through the Healthy Youth Positive Energy Hype initiative.
The reality is that 7 of every 10 Jamaicans would die each year. And we have about 18 to 20,000 deaths in our country each year, die from what we classify as non-communicable diseases. Lifestyle diseases, to put it simplistically. And it's all about our physical inactivity and our consumption patterns, our habits.
The Ministry of Health is on a mission to change that by getting every Jamaican to engage in at least 30 minutes of physical exercise daily. In fueling this fitness revolution, the ministry launched the Jamaica Moves campaign under the theme, More Moments, More Memories, and More Life.
If you do what we are promoting, then as the tagline says, you'll have more moments, more time to spend with your family, your friends, do what you enjoy, more memories, capture all of those lovely memories, and more life.
Through promotional events across the island, the ministry is showcasing entertaining exercise workouts that persons can go home and practice. Free medical checks are also being provided.
It's part of the preventative healthcare method, and that's the approach that we're trying to take before we get to the part of the curative side, which is hospital care. Rarely do we speak about the need to change our lifestyle in our own interests as individuals. And it is cheaper to do that. 1/3 of your income, according to the World Bank, if you get arthritis, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and all the others that are linked to lifestyle, 1/3 of your disposable income, the World Bank says, will end up being spent on treating those ailments. So it affects the bottom line and your pocket also.
Many persons like this man can testify to the benefits of living a healthy lifestyle, which extend beyond monetary savings.
All my family have diabetes. One night, I see my hand hook up like this, pull in, and get cramp. My feet then start to cramp. The morning, I put on my clothes, get ready and go to the doctor. He do my blood sugar level, and it was 29.5. And I say, oh my God, you almost kill yourself. So the doctor said, I know what to do, Mr. Reed. He says, yes, sir. So I was weighing at the time 285 pounds with a big tummy like this. So he said, go and cut out your belly. And you know what I mean. So I said, I understood, doctor. I'm going to change my diet and I'm going to take up exercise 1,000,000%. So I start off by 1 mile back and forth till I end up doing 10 miles. Exercise is the key to good health. Eat right, change your diet, less carb. Remember to put the running shoes right at your bed. As you step out of your bed, you step in. And the first thing, you drink 1 cup of water before you move. And eat a lot of fruit, eat a lot of greens, and always have 1 glass of the green juice every week.
Dedicating 30 minutes out of every day to physical exercise may seem a big challenge, but begin with just 1 step and you'll find it becomes manageable. Regular exercise helps prevent damage to your heart's artery from high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and high blood pressure that can lead to heart attack or stroke. Medical experts say aerobic exercises also improve the body's blood circulation and reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes while helping to control blood glucose in persons living with diabetes. There are exercises tailored to building muscle and losing weight, increasing strength, and improving flexibility.
The reality is, many of us don't practice healthy living, so we need more people to do it, and by doing it, encourage others so to follow.
Staying fit and healthy is everybody's business, so get moving for better health.
Coping with the loss of a loved one is hard, particularly once you realize that you will have to face the new year and all others without that special someone. Up next, an outline, if you will, on how to stay sane through it all.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. Now, today we'll be talking with consultant psychiatrist Dr. Jeffrey Walcott on how to cope with the loss of a loved one. Dr. Walcott, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
First, explain the impact of the death of a loved one.
Well, you see, most persons experience loss differently,
Yes.
but there are commonalities. But I think one of the most important things for us to recognize is that dealing with grief is a normal human experience. It's something that we have to go through. It's inevitable, and it's not a pathology. In saying that, however, we recognize that it is painful and can be immensely painful for persons who are experiencing, depending on how close they are to the person that they have lost. And so there's been a sort of framework that has been developed to identify the emotional states that persons go through. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had developed a pattern of grief that we see. And initially what you see early in the loss is the business of denial. Persons end up in shock because you can't process it at the immediate impact of the event. And then persons go through feelings of anger, you go through stages of bargaining, and then eventually you then start to have the feelings of depression and finally acceptance. Mm-hmm. And those steps are not clear or linear. In other words, people can go through various stages at various times, and there's no time limit. So each person is different, but what you require during those stages remains somewhat similar. People need information, they need connection, they need support, emotional support, and at the end, they need guidance and some amount of direction as to how to get their lives to move on while incorporating the loss that they've gone through.
So would the impact be different depending on the age of the person?
It does, and depending on the experience. Persons who have dealt with loss before tend to be more resilient. Resiliency is a trait, not a character trait, but it's a learned process that we develop over time. The more difficulties we go through, the more adversities, the stronger we are at dealing with future events. And so persons will vary based on experience, based on age, based on stage of development and psychological strengths. So it tends to be different with each person, but some of the commonalities are they all need support. They all need a shoulder or a listening ear, and we all need a supportive community around us.
Talk to us about some of what we should look out for, the signs that we would see, and the kind of behavior in persons who are going through this kind of grief.
I think one of the important hallmarks or triggers for the intervention process is withdrawal. Persons who are going through any form of psychological pain or suffering will have a normal tendency to withdraw, and that's the wrong and counterproductive thing to do, because at this stage is when you actually need to have the support of persons around you, not necessarily to discuss what's happened, but just to be there, just to be in a safe space with persons that are supportive, that are sharing in the grief. And that's why when you look at how almost every culture deals with the process of loss, the actual rituals are quite similar. It has to do with coming together of communities, coming together of families, because we know that those things are impactful in allowing persons to process the loss and the trauma in a healthy way. And so it's important to recognize and counter when persons are trying to isolate or withdraw and offer them help.
Right, so we don't necessarily need to try to get them out.
Not necessarily, just to be there and just to check up on them. Even if they sometimes don't want you to call or don't want to say, still do it. Give them the option or the opportunity to engage with persons once they're going through this pain, and not to go through it alone.
Okay, so what other signs can we look with? So there's withdrawal, are there any kind of other signs?
And I think what a delineation is to identify when clinical or significant impairment has occurred where we'll need professional help. And I think that's where I alluded to. But the issue is, once you have changes in your sleep patterns, your appetite, physiological changes, in other words, you're being impaired now, first physically and then psychologically, not able to perform at work, not able to do your normal daily routine, and then that may be a need for some level of professional intervention. But it's important to understand, because most people view psychiatric care or psychological care as an intrusion or as somewhat of a forced entity, but it's really not. We're here to help and to provide support as much as you need. Most, if not all, the public health facilities have mental health services attached to them in the nearest community clinic that you can have. And there's a plethora of both private and public entities that provide psychiatric and psychological services. And the Ministry of Health actually has several helplines that they have created to be able to direct persons to access psychotherapeutic or supportive psychotherapeutic services and mental health services all across the island. So all you need to do is to reach out to one of your health facilities or even your private practitioner, and they can guide you to accessing mental health care, both in the public and private sector.
We want to remind you that exercise is important and that you may get help at the clinic in your community. So do not be afraid to go to the clinic. We're talking to Dr. Jeffrey Walcott, and he's a consultant psychiatrist. Thank you so very much for watching, and we'll see you next time when we have another interesting program. I'm Rose Campbell. Take good care.
We've come to the end of today's program, but we want to encourage you to keep on that New Year's resolution. You may have missed a step. Maybe you didn't start the way you wanted to. Perhaps you have not started at all. Get to it. Remember, it's never too late and you're never too old to become better. Be sure to check out our website for the latest happenings coming out of the government, and come back tomorrow, same time on this same station. Until then, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Walk good.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.